Hey, this is Troy Taylor with the Championship Football Coaches Clinic podcast, sponsored by First Down Playbook, Rack Coach, Tip of the Spear, the Top Hopper, and Sports Workbook. Save some money today down there with your codes. FD, First Down Playbook has been so good to us, Charlie Coinier, and the Top Hopper, and Coach gets a free sports workbook for coming on today. We're going to be talking about recruiting. So, Coach Wachenheim, I've been following your career since you coached for Liberty and then went to the Washington Redskins and offensive line coach at UVA and head coach at VMI. Big fan of yours, and just saw what you were tweeting, Coach, and asked you, would you come back on? And just for anybody that doesn't know, that didn't watch the last podcast, Coach, tell us a little bit about yourself and, what's basically why are you tweeting this stuff and, who can benefit from it?
Yeah. So, a little bit about myself. I grew up in Southern California, played high school football there, went to the Air Force Academy as an offensive lineman on a scholarship, played there at Air Force, graduated, did 5 years in the Air Force, and then decided to get in coaching, started at the University of Arkansas as a GA, then went to the University of Colorado as a GA, got my first full-time job at Utah State University. I went from there to Rice University. From Rice, I went to Liberty University. From Liberty to the Washington Redskins, and then to the University of Virginia, and then as head coach at Virginia Military Institute. I decided after 8 years as head coach and 33 years in coaching to take a step back for a short time because I knew my time at VMI was coming to an end and it was time to leave. And, really right now just trying to figure out what the next step in my career, whether it's in coaching or not, is going to be. I've always wanted to put out information like I have been on recruiting to try and help out, college coaches that were young coaches, basically because the first time I went on the road as a college coach was as a graduate assistant at the University of Colorado. The running backs coach was let go a week before spring recruiting, and Coach Mack called me in his office and said, "Walk, you're from SoCal. Why don't you go down there and recruit it for us?" And I said, "Sure, Coach." And so, I asked all the assistant coaches for pointers, and, they told me that, hey, Coach Mack really likes you wearing a coat and tie out there on the road, spring recruiting. So here I am driving around in Southern Cal in the spring, 80-degree weather in a coat and tie. And I noticed I'm the only college assistant doing that. And it wasn't until a week later when I got back at Colorado, I said, "Guys, I'm the only guy doing this. You sure Mac wants you to wear a coat and tie when you're on the road?" And they just laughed, So, I just thought since I wasn't a head coach and competing anymore, or assistant coach competing with guys, that I put some tips and reminders out there for college coaches, and then threw a couple things together for high school coaches that, I appreciated when I stopped by, that certain high school coaches had done. And then, also for the recruits, because I think sometimes they're the least educated in this process. And there's so many people out there with, 24/7 rivals on, giving information. Some of these guys have no clue what recruiting's about. So, I'm just trying to put out information that I learned as a player and assistant coaches and head coach that hopefully is helpful to a lot of people, because I do want to serve the coaching community and the player community now that I'm not actively out there competing.
So let's just start with the players, because everybody wants to go to Alabama or UVA or Virginia Tech. And what would you tell those parents and those kids that might be, let's just start with the freshmen and sophomores. Like, what should they be focused on? What is the process like?
Well, Troy, I'm going to start with the seniors and work down. I appreciate the question, but I think that's the more logical approach. So,
yes, sir.
You got rising seniors. They're in the class of 2024, and what they got to understand is only 3% are going to get some kind of scholarship money in the entire United States or the world even. College coaches are recruiting anywhere they play football, Germany, Israel, wherever. They're recruiting for the best talent to come play. So only 3% are going to get played. Now, the Power 5 and the top FBS schools, they already know who they want. And you know that as a coach. They're on 25s, 26s, and 27s right now. So if you're a 2024 guy without an offer from a Division I school, it does happen about 1% to 2% of the time that a guy has a great senior year and will get an offer, but it's rare. And so what you have to do, I think, is focus on the best offers that you have a legitimate chance at. And so still go to your dream school. Like if you're in Richmond, Virginia, and your dream school is UVA or Virginia Tech, go to their camp and try and show out for those guys. But you should go to your favorite Division I FCS school, whether that's Richmond, William and Mary, or what have you. And then go to your favorite D2 and even a D3 school. Don't think by going to a mega camp, you're going to get noticed. I went to a mega camp as a head coach. I actually went to quite a few, and, I got to observe a little bit differently than an assistant. And what I saw is, most of the college coaches get there and they're talking to each other. They're not watching the kids compete. And the other thing I learned, there's so many players, it's hard to really focus on the players that you really want to see. Do you want to see all of them, or do you just want to see a handful? And so, I don't think the mega camps are the best place to get exposure for young college recruits. And there might be college coaches that disagree with me and other coaches, and that's fair. But, you have me on here. But I think going to the exact college you want to go to, going to that camp, see how that position coach coaches you, see how that head coach interacts with you, see how you compare to the other players at that camp. Take the time to visit the campus while you're there, walk around and see if it feels like home to you. I think that is the best way to go for the rising senior with no offers. If you already have an offer, then my advice to you is find out quick where you want to go and commit before that offer becomes non-committable. You really, and I'm going to tweet about this, I haven't done it yet, but offers have changed. It used to be offers didn't get given to a young man till he came on his official visit. Now they get them really early. Sophomores, juniors, freshmen even get offered if you're really good. And so as a kid getting offered, you got to say, okay, is this offer committable? You have to ask that question. Coach, is this offer committable? So this is to all classes. And then you got to determine, even if that answer is yes, who offered you? Was it the area recruiting coach? Was it the position coach? Was it the coordinator? Was it the head coach? Because really, the only one that carries big time weight is when the head coach offers you, because the average stay of an offensive coordinator at a D1 school is 2 years, and the average stay of an assistant coach is 3 years. And so, you really want to be offered by the head coach. If they truly want you, the head coach will give you a call, or he'll stop by and have you visit in his office or out on the field if you go to camp. So, again, that's my advice on that part. For the young guys, the most important thing is, make sure you have the right amount of core courses, and make sure you're getting B's or above in as many as you can. A 2.0 GPA doesn't help you get into college. And so C's, while you'll graduate high school with that, you need to get at least a 2.6 to have a chance to go in there and play without any issues in college. So you got to work at school, man. I mean, that's what college football is about. It's getting an education as well for free. And so even before NILs, you're getting paid to play college football. It's just you were getting a college degree that hopefully would get you a better job. But you got to make sure you're in 16 core. And I would do the research. The NCAA Clearinghouse has got a great Twitter page and website to explain to you what they all are. But don't trust your high school counselor, because they have messed it up on several kids that I recruited during my time. And your high school coach, if he really, really cares, will know. But some of them don't. Again, some high school coaches are just worried about whether the young man's eligible to play for them, not whether he's eligible to go compete as a freshman in college. So, number one, your young kids, especially your freshmen and sophomores, get your grades up. Number two, train with your high school team, lift weights, play other sports too. But you got to get bigger and stronger. The weight room will do that. Play other sports that will help your athleticism, and compete and be the best player you can be. Enjoy your high school career and that journey, because, again, only 3% are going on to play college football. And then go to camps and as a young guy, go to any camp you want, but be realistic in comparing yourself to others. Don't only compete to be the best you can be there, but watch yourself and see how you compete. And then, even if you're not good enough, don't get down, because it's amazing the maturity from your freshman to sophomore year, sophomore to junior year, junior to senior year. I myself gained 2 to 4 inches a year and 20 to 30 pounds a year from my sophomore to junior and junior to senior year. So, God works different in the maturation levels of kids. And, that's why guys that are 2 and 3 stars end up being first round draft picks in the NFL. So, just keep working, keep dreaming your dream. Don't let anybody tell you what you can and can't do. And, even the great Aaron Rodgers, he went to a junior college before he went to play college football, before he went to the NFL. So, don't worry about it. Just keep grinding on, do your work and be the best you can be.
Yeah. So I don't think sometimes I think kids or parents, they don't understand, the position coaches that come out and recruit, they call them recruiters, but I mean, they're actually coaches, and there's a checkoff system in the eyeball test, the grade test, the film test, the kid test, or the character test. Like, talk a little bit about that, Coach. Like, does a kid have to check off the eyeball test? Do they have to check off the grade test, the film test, the character test?
That's different school to school and coach to coach. Everybody has different expectations on what they're doing with recruiting. And talent will sometimes, a really, really talented kid that you think you can win a championship with. Sometimes the other boxes don't get checked, quite as closely, just being truthful on that part of it. But I used to always tell my staff, and what I look for is, number one, character. Does a guy possess character? Not is he a character, but does he possess character? And the way you do that is, don't ask the high school coach, don't ask his mom, ask the lady at the front desk, ask some random person walking down the hall, hey, what do you think about Johnny Jones? And if they know him and smile, or if they kind of don't want to answer, you get your answer on character. Other track coaches are really good for that if the kid runs track, because there's a lot of time in between races at track meets, and you really learn a lot about a kid by going to a track meet. Other coaches in the area, like if I'm recruiting a guy at your rival school, Troy, you play him for 3 years, you've watched 3 or 4 of his games, game planning, what he's like on the field because you've seen him play live. Know more about that kid than I do coming through the area. So that's character. Number 2 is academics. Does he have the academic ability to graduate from the school you're working at? Number 3, talent. Can he win you a championship with after being in your program for 2 years? And is he a good fit at the school? Certain schools like VMI, where I was at, it took a certain type of person to attend that kind of school. So those are the things that you kind of look at, when you go by. I kind of threw the eyeball test a little bit out of there, more to evaluating on film. There's a lot of guys that look like Tarzan and don't play like Tarzan, on game day. I like watching game day film. I think the best evaluation, though, is watching a young man compete live. If you can see a 7-on-7 during spring recruiting, if you can see him work out live with his team, if they're practicing, a lot of high schools do workouts in the morning or in the afternoon. If you can catch him doing that, you can see him lift weights just to see the way he carries himself. But, you do want to, there are certain minimums you want to hit, but there's always an exception to the rule. And again, depending where you're recruiting, you might not be able to recruit the guy that fits your parameters perfectly. Sometimes you got to try and get an exception to the rule, a guy that's just a little bit different that can win you a game that, most guys wouldn't take. So, for instance, Jacob Harris, who played for us at VMI and at Richmond, he was a tall receiver and everybody said he was too slow. But what he had is great height and length. And what people underestimated is how hard he competed to get open on every single route he ran. And, those are things that made him an exception to the rule, because he didn't pass the, 40 times speed test if you timed him in a 40. So, but what he did have is great length and great competitiveness. So there's always exceptions to the rule. You're looking for, if you're not at a main school, like if you're not at Clemson, who's a guy good enough to beat Clemson that might be an exception to the rule, that they won't recruit, but you might be able to beat them with. A lot of things involved in it.
I mean, like back in the day, we used to send out VHS tapes. We used to send out DVDs. and we send emails. And I mean, the college coaches get tons and tons of emails. I mean, from looking at it from the other side, talking to a player or a parent, being a head coach, being an assistant at, head coach at VMI, assistant at UVA, like, are there any mysteries out there of kids? Or, I mean, does every college do their due diligence in watching the schools in their areas huddles?
That's a great question. I think a lot of coaches don't. I think a lot of coaches rely on the 4 and 5 and 3-star ratings, and a lot of times that's just word of mouth and who offered them and things of that nature. I did. Now I would tell high school coaches, high school players, number one, make your own highlight tape. Don't let the high school coach make it. Parents, don't make the highlight tape for your kids. Make the kid make it. If a parent is making a highlight tape for a kid, he doesn't want it that bad. Make the kid make his own highlight tape. Put your very best 5 plays as the first 5 plays. Because if the first 5 plays don't catch the attention, the rest of the tape is not getting watched.
Yeah.
I wouldn't pay anybody to help me get recruited as a high school kid. That's a waste of money. Get together a great huddle highlight tape. Okay. Email all the coaches yourself who you're interested in with the link to your highlight tape. Make sure that huddle highlight is on your Twitter, so the coaches don't have to go to the huddle page to watch it. They can just kick on your Twitter and watch it. And you will get watched for the most part. Now, again, a lot of people don't trust their own evaluation talent. And, I actually feel very comfortable with my ability to evaluate players. And so I like to watch tape. And I did that at VMI. I watched every single player before we offered them. It would go to the area coach, to the position coach, to me, and I'd watch every player. And, I would then meet with the area coach and position coach and, try and see what they saw, if my opinion was different from their opinion, and, try to come up to a consensus there. But again, mistakes are made. The NFL, when I was in the NFL, we would have to grade 3 full game tapes on a guy as a coach, and the scouts would have to grade 12. And then you get to see him play live, you get to see him practice, and you only have to go to 1 college a day as an NFL scout. And so it's, where a college coach in spring is going 5 to 7 high schools, sometimes more, and he's watching highlight films every once in a while, a game film on a guy, and he can't see everybody play live because, you can only get to 1 or 2 games a Friday. So you don't get the same evaluation. So mistakes are made in recruiting. But I think for the most part, if you're a high school kid and you send your tape out and the first 5 plays are good, you're going to get watched. But it doesn't always happen that way. A lot of coaches rely on word of mouth and their connections, and they learn to trust a high school coach. Maybe they have a guy that they know that they've recruited the same school for 12, 13, 14 years. And sometimes they'll trust that guy's opinion more than the video they're watching, or they, don't have time to see all the video. I don't know. But me personally, I like to watch the tape myself, and then I like to talk to coaches. And then the evaluation that means the most is the opponent coach, the coach that played against that young man, because he actually knows the guy, and he's under no pressure to get that kid recruited. Where you are, like, you're under pressure, Troy, to get the kids on your team recruited. I mean, there's some parents that are probably saying, "Hey, Troy, how come you're not showing my kid to these college coaches?" And you are, and but he's just not good enough. But the parent thinks he is.
Well, the one thing I do is I really don't make decisions on kids. If a kid played for us, got playing time, and he's got film, then he goes on the list. And if the kid doesn't have film, I can't recommend a kid that doesn't have film, because, I mean, they're going to say with Troy, this kid ain't got no film. He doesn't even have a highlight tape. So, it's really not up to me. It's up to the coach. And talk about, like, maybe a receiver coach from VMI comes to Bird. He likes a kid. He might like an O-lineman. So now what does he have to do? Does he have to take that to the O-line coach, and then does it go up the ladder? Or talk about that, because I don't think a lot of coaches understand, high school or maybe parents and kids, about that whole process.
It's done different everywhere. In the spring, it depends what school you're at and the timing. So in the spring at VMI, timing wasn't an issue. And so if a receiver coach came by your school, saw an old lineman, he would make sure the O-line coach, watched them. And then if the O-line coach watched them, then I would watch them. But if we're a week or two before signing date and the receiver coach is driving through and there was an old lineman that moved in, or he just got the grades, or he grew 4 inches over the summer, then he would send him, if he couldn't get a hold of the O-line coach to watch him, he had the ability to send him directly to me, and I would watch him. Because, when you're all driving around from school to school to school to school, sometimes decisions have to be made without doing it the normal process. So it just depends on timing and speed. And again, everybody's different. Some people make the coordinators watch them first. I didn't do that. I just thought the coordinators, that would really bog them down and take them out of recruiting the area that they could recruit. I know Gary Patterson, who's a good friend of mine, when he was at TCU, kept his offense and defensive coordinator off the road, and the offensive coordinator watched all the offensive players. The defensive coordinator watched all the defensive players. And if they liked them, they would send them to Gary to get the final authorization to approve them. So there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. I just felt that was the best way for us to do things. And I like watching tape. I like recruiting. I think talent is the number one trump thing to winning football games. You can be the greatest head coach in the world. If you're not talented, you're not going to win. I mean, Bill Belichick doesn't have Tom Brady, and they've had some different people at different positions, and he's not winning championships anymore. So you got to have great players. Number one, you got to have unbelievable strategy and a great preparation and a culture, and it all combines together to make a winning program. But if you don't have good enough players to win, it's very difficult in today's football with the amount of money coaches get paid to out-scheme or out-coach anybody.
Yeah. So when you tweeted out the information for the high school kids, talk a little bit about that, the advice that you gave about going to camps, because I really like that, because I'm a Virginia guy. I kind of base everything off of Virginia, UVA, Virginia Tech, and then ODU, Liberty, and then on down the line. And talk a little bit about that, Coach. Like, what's a plan that a kid can have?
So what I tweeted out for the kids with no offers, 24s, I said, hey, if you're 2024, you don't have any offers, you should go to your dream school. So whatever your dream school is, I mean, you could be in Richmond and your dream school's North Carolina or Maryland, then go to that camp. Then, go to your favorite Division I FCS camp, and then your favorite D2 and favorite D3, and the closer to home, the better. That was my advice for kids on where to camp. If you're a younger kid, I think you go to, again, your dream school, number one, and then I'd go to an FCS, a D2 and a D3. I'd go to 4 camps. That's it. That's plenty of camps. It's going to cost you $200, $50 a camp probably, and go there one-day camps. And then when you're there, compare yourself to the other people that are at the camp, and without just accurately take a look and compare yourself. And then also how the coaches treat you. Are they talking to you? Because if nobody talks to you other than to say hello, you didn't do anything to pique their interest. And so, again, don't take that as a solid no, you're never going to be a college player, but just take it, hey, I better go back and work a little harder. Maybe I'm not 6'5" and I'm trying to play O-line. Okay, what can I do? I can be strong. I can be explosive. I can be quick. I can do things to help myself. And, maybe I'm not a D1 FBS or a Power 5 player. So what? Be the best you can be. Comparison is the thief of all joy. Just be the best you can do and go play college ball if you want to at the place that fits your abilities the best. Because, look, the number one thing to having fun playing football is playing. You can be on a winning team and not playing, and football's not as fun. You want to play. You want to play for a winning team. And you want to play at a place that the people who you love the most can come see you play. And that's generally close to home. And so I think the biggest mistakes are made by guys going across the country to try and play somewhere, and they get homesick. And it's great to fly out on a weekend and go visit, and they're entertaining you. But when you're on your own going to class and the coaches aren't taking you out to dinner every night, do you really want to be that far from home? So I think a lot of mistakes are going when you go far, far away versus, staying close to home. So those are the things I throw out for the players, again, I think if you do all those things, you'll make great decisions.
Like Coach Holt, who was the offensive line coach at Virginia Union, he always used to say, I love Beyonce. He loved Beyonce. He said, I love Beyonce, but Beyonce doesn't love me. So it isn't who you love, it's who loves you. And I tell our players that. I have a kid, last year or a couple years ago, coach, can you talk to the Virginia Tech coaches about me coming to a junior day? Well, the Virginia Tech coaches have came by here twice, and they're not showing you any love. So is that true, Coach? It's not who you love, it's who loves you.
To an extent, what I would add to it is if I was really in love with Beyonce, I'd go ask her out for a date. And if she said no, then, okay, then I think I got my answer there. And so, like I would say to the guy that wants to go to the Virginia Tech Junior Day, it's not that hard to shoot a guy an email and try and get yourself invited to Junior Day. And if you don't hear back from them,
there's your answer.
Indication that they don't want you to go there. Now, you still don't want them to say no. Nobody's going to stop you from signing up for their camp and go out there. And if you are a good enough player for Virginia Tech or Virginia or ODU or Liberty or Richmond, they're going to notice you. I mean, they're going to notice you at their camps. Now, if you go to a mega camp, and I don't want to name schools because I don't want to.
Yeah, but one that's got 30 colleges.
It's got 30 colleges there and 1,000 players. You better be in the top 1% to get noticed. I mean, you better be Superman. So unless you're that dude, the mega camp's not going to help you. And then even then, like I said, it's those 30 schools, they send 5 coaches each. There's 150 coaches there, and you'll notice about 100 of them are talking to each other, not even watching what's going on. And there's 50 of them that are actually working it and doing it. And, that's just the way it is. And I know some college coaches might get mad at me, but I stood back there and watched. I'm not naming any names, but I noticed a lot of people spending more time talking to other college coaches than they were watching drills.
Yeah, Coach. So, I think parents and players that have watched this, I think that they will get some good information. Is there anything else you can think of that you can tell the parents and players that we might missed out on, or something you want to reemphasize?
I would tell the parents this, everybody's career ends sooner or later. I mean, love your son or daughter the best you can, as long as they're doing the best they can be and the best they can be, and they enjoy playing the game. Don't worry about college and scholarships and all that stuff. You can always walk on. Take all that money you're investing in trying to get your son recruited and going to 10,000 camps, put it into an index fund like in Vanguard's total stock market fund or the Vanguard 500 fund, and put it in dollar cost average into that and use that to offset some of the cost of college. And who knows, your son walks on or daughter walks on somewhere to play, and they keep working and they're having fun. They may eventually earn a scholarship, at least you maybe get the last year paid or half of it paid. So, or part of it, and just love them, enjoy it, and don't worry about the recruiting. If they're good enough, it will take care of itself. If they're not good enough, there's nothing you can do as a parent to get them good enough. So just love your kids, enjoy what they're doing, enjoy where they're at right now. Don't worry about tomorrow. There's a lot of. I hope I'm covering what you deal with it.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. The kid was a good high school player. Okay. Yeah. But after they get done playing high school, they go out and they end up being a bad person. I would rather have my son never play football and be a good man and, be a good American. But like the high school coaches, talking to them, Coach, I know guys, and you probably know them too. A lot of high school coaches take recruiting personal. That if you didn't offer their guy, then they're upset and they get in their feelings. And it's a business. It's a business. And there's mistakes. Like you said, I always tell my players, dude, J.J. Watt was a walk-on. Like Aaron Rodgers had no offers coming out of high school. Antonio Brown was a walk-on. The process is not perfect. And a lot of times they just recruit size. They don't look at heart or who the best player is. They look at potential. So what can you say to the high school coaches? How can they prepare when a college coach comes and visits their school?
Yeah, so first of all, I have great appreciation for high school coaches. My brother was a high school basketball coach in California, and so I get to hear his stories of coaches recruiting as well. And I never coached high school. I did try to volunteer at one coming out of the Air Force Academy when I was serving in the Air Force, and I got turned down even though I volunteered to work for free. So that was my only attempt at high school coaching. But I have a great appreciation for them, especially during spring recruiting, and I would do my best as a college recruiter to set up all my visits and say, hey, Troy, I'm going to be by at 7:30, and coach, the second school, I'm going to try and be there at 9 o'clock. But sometimes you can't get there on time, and the high school coaches always want you to come during their free period or workouts. But as a college coach, you can't do that. But I would walk into a high school and I would understand this, is that the high school coach is first and foremost the coach of his team. He's got to get his team ready to win a championship next year. And he's got to deal with his players. He's probably teaching a class. He's got to deal with parents, booster club, administrators. And here I am, one of 100 coaches coming through, interrupting his day every day. So I tried to be very appreciative of that and considerate of the coach's time. So I would try, but it was impossible to accurately depict, when I was going to come by all the time. And then I'd also try to see which coach that I didn't have to go through the front desk to come see him. Like if he was out in a field house, it just saved me 10, 15, 20 minutes a stop if I didn't have to go through the front desk procedures, which I guess will get you in trouble at some places, but that's just the truth of it. And most coaches do that. But the high school,
yeah, coach. I mean, there's some schools that aren't even lit. Now, this ain't my school because they're very supportive. But there are some schools that college coaches have told me they won't let the coaches go in the building.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of safety issues in high schools that didn't used to be there.
But they won't get the kids out of class. Like they won't let them go see the coach.
Like, yeah, it's tough. I mean, but again, from the high school administrator's perspective, I would say you're trying to get a kid a high school degree and he's getting pulled out of class 7 times a day. And even though we're not supposed to talk to him, he ends up being out of class 30 to 45 minutes. So it's tough from that end too. So I do understand everybody's bitness, and football is unique. We're the only, school. We're the only sport that actually goes high school to high school to high school in springtime recruiting kids. Most people go to showcases and see them compete, where we're actually going to the high school to see them. So I do understand, all parties to that. But here's what I think is helpful for a high school coach from a college coach coming in. Number one, if you have a list of your players that are on the team, it could be the whole roster, it doesn't matter, but you have their name, address, phone number, email, Twitter handle, whether they're living with mom and dad or just mom or just dad, and a transcript, unofficial transcript. If you have that, and obviously you can't have a transcript for every kid, but or if at least have the players sign off that they release their transcript out, that's helpful, because you walk in and a coach gives you a list, even though you might already have one from the services that you buy. It's just helpful to get that, and then be able just to go through the high school kids. Maybe there's one guy that the service person, mistyped or something, or left off the list, who knows, but that's helpful. So, you start there. I think that's great for the high school coach. What I would say to him is this: only 3% of high school kids nationwide get scholarship money of any kind. And, maybe 1% go to Power 5 schools. So, I would tell the high school coaches is that, the biggest bang for your buck is those D2, D3 guys that can, split up, D2 can split up the money. D3, it's all financial aid stuff. FCSs can split up money a little bit too. So you get more bang of the buck the lower level the college coach goes in there. And I get it. If I'm sitting there as the head high school coach and Nick Saban walks in, that means a little bit more than when Scott Wachenheim walks in the door. I understand that, but there is a time to say, hey, Nick, man, we got you set up, but I got to help out the rest of my kids and go talk to Walk over there. So, I do get that, but understand this: a college coach's opinion is truly only his opinion, and it's hard because I was an honest recruiter. Like if you told me you had a guy, Troy, and I didn't think he was good enough, I would try to professionally and politely say, hey, Troy, just so you know, we're not going to recruit him here at UVA. And, I got met with some bad, not you, I got met with some people that said, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're talking about. And, that could be so. I mean, I've made my fair share of mistakes on recruiting guys. But again, it's just my opinion. It's just my evaluation. It doesn't make it right. It just, if he doesn't fit what I'm looking for. But I've also gone to schools and he has no offers. And I've decided, hey, this guy fits. We're going to offer him. And I think he's good enough. And made the coach's day. But it's just, I would say the high school coach, it's just an opinion. And I'd also say he may be the best player you coached, or he may be the best player in the area. But, he might not be in the top 3% nationwide. And I learned an important lesson recruiting out in California. There was a kid when I was at Utah State, I was recruiting, and UCLA offered him. And I said, how is UCLA offering this guy? The film just doesn't make sense. Well, the guy was just unbelievably fast. I mean, he was just a speed demon. And, he ended up going to UCLA and having a good career because the speed that he had allowed him to be an exceptional player. So, not everybody's 100% right all the time, but, sometimes you are, and beauty's in the eye of the beholder. But, I think the job of the high school coach in recruiting is to expose and give all of his players that play for him an opportunity for all the college coaches that come by to evaluate them. But, you can't sell them all that high. I mean, you got to answer the questions that you have truthful to the college coach. And again, if a guy's really, really good enough, if you have a Division I player on your team, or let's just say this, Troy, if there's a Division I player on any of your opponents in your district, do you know about him?
If I don't, then I would say they're probably not. So yes.
Yeah,
yes.
you know about
when they walk out there,
ready. And so that's why I think the opposing coach can be so helpful to getting kids exposed. And
I agree.
All you can do is the best you can do, and recommend them. Let each college coach evaluate them, and then it's up to the young man. Eventually, his performance in the classroom, off the field, and on the field is going to sell his performance to the college coach. So that to me, if a high school coach has a list with all that contact information and has a transcript and is very honest and open and professional, understands that a college coach's opinion is only his opinion, and that, hey, we're doing our best to try. I hope most coaches are. We're doing our best to try and schedule and be appreciative of your time and not waste your time, and come by and do our work and not disrupt your work. I think it works out really, really good. And again, I think some of the best people in the world I've ever met are high school coaches. I put out a tweet about Steve Magenbauer at Salem, what a great relationship we had. And, there's just so many others that, the relationships that I formed by recruiting their schools for years was just awesome. And I think that's because I was truthful and honest. They might not have liked my opinion all the time, but at least they knew they were getting the truth. And, I developed some great relationships with some guys.
Can you take your personal opinion out of it and just stick to the facts? Like, the kid isn't big enough. We don't think he's fast enough. He doesn't make enough plays.
You can say that if that's true. You can say that's true. But I think the truth is always the best thing to say. For whatever reason, as a college coach, you don't like him, I think you just say, hey, he doesn't fit. Or, a lot of times it's, hey, we're only signing one receiver and we have already got
that's it.
So there's just so many reasons why a coach might not want him. And again, none of them are negative on the kid, and none of them's being disrespectful to that high school coach. And, it's the hardest when you're recruiting your own state, because, if you walk into your school and you're at UVA and you don't offer a kid in North Carolina does, it makes you look bad. But here's a true story. And this happened to us at UVA when I was there. There was an offensive lineman who was rated a 4-star because he had an offer from another ACC school, allegedly. And there was a lot of pressure on me as the O-line coach to sign off on them because I didn't like them, by the area coach because, he had an offer from this particular ACC school. And, we didn't want to lose out on a 4-star in-state because our alumni who read, Rivals or whichever service, 24/7 on, are saying, how come they haven't offered this 4-star player? Well, the pressure got so big on me that I finally said, fine, let's go ahead and offer him. They brought him in. The guy never played for us at UVA. He ended up not being a player for us. He never got on the field. And, it's my fault because I didn't stick to my guns, but, that happens. And what I came to find out is the school that allegedly had offered him in the ACC never offered him. So
you're saying that some kids might be tweeting out offers or saying they have offers. The high school coach is saying a kid had an offer and they might not have. It's happened in your experience.
I'm saying that there's 4 people that put out that a kid gets offered. Could be the kid, could be the high school coach, could be the local area handler of kids, and it could be the recruiting service. And that's what I'm saying. If you don't do your homework, watch film, sometimes you say, hey, we're going to offer them just to get in the game. And again, sometimes opposing schools will offer a kid. Like they may offer a kid at your school, but it's not a committable offer because they want everybody else to offer him and then and see him go to a rival and open up other kids for them. There's a lot of things going on in recruiting behind the scenes that are crazy. So yeah, all that happens.
Man. So the part
I can talk about really, it now because I'm not coaching.
Yeah.
When you're coaching, you're not going to talk about
it's really fascinating, being able to have you here. And I was just so lucky to be able to coach college 3 years and be able to know both sides of it, as a high school coach and have so many connections, through this podcast and through the 20 years that, it's just, I'm blessed.
Yeah, no, me too. It's been great. And again, there's a lot of good things. We're talking about some of the differences, but there's a lot of good things in recruiting. There's more success stories in recruiting than there is horror stories. I mean, the upfront stuff is great. There's a lot of kids that always dreamed about going to UVA. There's a lot of school kids that dreamed about going to Virginia Tech. There's a lot of kids that dreamed about going to Liberty, what have you. And the coaches come in there and, everything's good. That guy's good enough. You offer him, he commits, over and done, and everybody's happy. It's the fringe cases that, get into where a lot of craziness gets in and, and then decommitting and committing, I get it. A high school kid goes on a visit. He's happy. He's feeling the energy. He commits. And then, he's away from it from 3 months and he goes, I don't know. I'm not sure I made the right choice. And, I understand all that.
So you had tweeted out information for the college coaches.
Yeah.
So like that was interesting. And I know some coaches, there was some pushback. Some guys say they don't eat, they drink Mountain Dew, they try to go to 10 schools in a day.
Yeah.
So go over some of those things, coaches, that you would recommend to the college coaches out there.
Yeah. Let me get the thing. So this is over 33 years. I screwed up a lot of things. So number one, get up early and get a workout in. So, whether for me, I'm going to get up, I'm a Christian. I believe Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. And so, I want to get up every morning, read some scripture, pray for the coaches I'm going to see that day, pray for safety traveling, spend some time doing that. And then I want to work out because, hey, I'll work out at night when I get to the room. Never did it. I'm too tired. So I get in and 20, 30 minutes in the morning just to stay in shape on the road, I think is critical. It helps you with your mental health and your energy. So to me, that's non-negotiable. You try and schedule every stop on the day, but you better schedule your first visit. And, my hope was always get to the first school early. Is there a school I can hit before school starts and watch these kids work out? That would be key for me to start my day. And so, schedule your first visit of the day. Try and schedule all your visits of the day, but your first one, avoiding the front desk, check out that can save you a ton of time. So be on high alert when entering, departing the high school parking lot, most dangerous driving area on your travels. So, you enter a high school parking lot and or leave it, there's a bunch of 16-year-old kids driving for the first time in their life. And, it's very unsafe. I actually got in an accident while recruiting early in my career in a high school parking lot. And so, that was something, wasn't my fault. It was the kid's fault, but that took a lot of time out of my recruiting day. So, I like to, be on real high alert, drive very defensively, in the parking lot. That's huge. Okay, your schedule's all messed up when you're on the road recruiting. So if you have to go to the restroom, especially number 2, there's nothing worse than a, bad place to do that. So, hotel lobbies are great. You get privacy, cleanliness, Lowe's and Home Depot also are good spots. So I just threw that out there because
wow. Now that's some great advice right there, man.
Yeah, it was worth it to go to a clean place to do that. Okay, the next one's going to be controversial. You still there? Lost him. You still there, man?
I put my drink down and hit my mouse.
Oh, okay. So you're still there.
Yeah,
okay,
Coach.
So the next one's where you get controversy. Next couple. I don't think it's important how many schools you hit in a day. I used to when I was a young coach that, hey, I got to get to 12 schools a day, or I got to get to more schools than my opponents. That's the thing. But what I think now is to do an accurate and thorough job. And the only way you can do that is if you take your time, if you're patient, if you're an active listener. And I think it's worth to take 30 minutes and have a sit-down lunch. I used to like to go to Panera Bread because I'd eat healthy. I'd get a big salad and then a cup of coffee to go. And that would help me, get through the rest of my day. And then I would also do things like I'd go to, a local Walmart or Sam's in the area and fill my rental car up with bottled water. So, I'd have water and, I'd have my chewing gum or mints, Altoids in the car. But, I'm not a Mountain Dew guy. I like hot coffee. And so, that's what I would do. And to get going. We already talked about seeing an athlete train live, I think is invaluable, especially if you see him play a game. That's better than watching film, any drill work. So if you can do that, great. I think you got to be honest and professional with everyone, especially the high school coach. I think, you blowing smoke or telling a guy you're going to offer him that you're not going to. I mean, just be upfront and honest. I think that works out better. Again, that's just me on that one. Coach Hatfield taught me this: recruiting's like shaving. If you don't do it every day, it shows. I think comparison's the thief of all joy. Don't worry about where you're at. Frosty Westerling said, make it the big time wherever you're at. Don't worry about what shirt you're wearing, what logo's on your shirt. You're blessed to be a college football coach. Enjoy it. You get to walk in to meet 7 guys one day or 5 guys one day that are unbelievable men. These high school coaches are awesome. And you're going there to evaluate a young man and perhaps give him an opportunity to play college football and earn a college degree and do things that maybe nobody in his family had ever done before. So, I think those are the things that I shared. I might have missed some. People might disagree with me. That's cool. I'm not going to argue that my way's the only way or that my opinions are the right opinions. What I really wanted to do with that is I just wanted to serve. I wanted to give a young first college coach on the road some thoughts from a guy that did it for 33 years on, hey, this is the way I think you recruit. If he disagrees with me and has got a better way, awesome, man, go do it. If there's somebody else giving you different advice that you think is better, great, follow it. But if nobody's giving you advice and you're looking for one way to do it that I found to be the most successful for me, here it is. And again, anybody that's got any questions, they can DM me, they can email me. coachswalk@gmail.com is my email. They can give me a call, DM me if you really want to talk. I'll, send me your phone number. I'll call you back and we'll talk. But I just want to be a service to young coaches that, maybe have some questions. If head coaches want to know how we set up recruiting, we did things a little different at VMI because at that school, we weren't anybody's first choice, even though we had a lot of great things to offer. And I had high staff turnover because our pay scale was lower than most colleges. So we recruited just a little bit differently in how we recruited the young men. in order to hopefully do a better job at it than had been done in the past. And so I have some ideas for that. I think, the thing that's really, really hard is when you're the top dog. Like, I think what Alabama does unbelievably well is just their ability to evaluate, because they can get anybody they really, really want. And, Mac Brown started off guns a-blazing in Texas, but then they started, they got the kids they wanted. They just didn't evaluate the right kids, and their talent level dropped, and they haven't been able to compete. But, most everybody in Texas wants to be a Texas Longhorn, going there, or an Oklahoma Sooner, or maybe an A&M Aggie, and there's plenty of kids to go around in that state. So you got to do a great job evaluating, and you got to watch a lot of tape to do that. And I think, Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, when he was at Ohio State, just unbelievable job evaluating talent and getting the right kids there for their programs. And, sustained excellence is just so impressive at those places.
Yeah, Coach. So, like, as Coach McNally is on Twitter now, and he's giving back, and he's trying to, prepare the next generation, do you feel that you are also giving back on Twitter? Because I don't know how active you were on Twitter when you were, a head coach. Have you picked up more on the Twitter and more on, giving information to coaches, Coach?
I was very active on Twitter as a head coach because I thought it was a recruiting tool. It was also a way to speak to your alumni, sell your program. And, I wanted to give out motivation then because, Ken Hatfield, when I played for him, he used to send out motivational posters, motivational pieces of paper. And, I'd go around recruiting, and the high school coaches would post them on their walls, and they would all tell me how much they appreciated Coach Hatfield sending that stuff out. And, I can do the same thing for a lot cheaper, on Twitter with motivational sayings, things that impacted me that I think are good things to teach. And so I was huge on Twitter when I was an assistant coach and as a college coach, head coach to recruit and put those things out there. I still do it today. I just do some things on the spring recruiting stuff that I wouldn't do when I was actively a head coach, because I was having to compete against everybody else, and I didn't want to give out, our trade secrets on what we did. So, I'm more willing to share that stuff. Plus, I felt if I put some of that stuff out there, people would think I'm doing that to, only to benefit myself and the program I was running, where now hopefully people look at it as like, hey, man, he's just trying to help. And again, what I would say to anybody listening to this or reading my tweets is, look, I don't have all the answers, and I'm not always right. I just have some opinions on some things that I think work well and some things that happen out there. And if you agree, awesome. If you don't, that's cool too. And if you want to discuss it, great. I'd love to discuss it. There's nothing better for me. I love if I think something and somebody thinks something else, and we have a great discussion about it. If he changes my mind, I just left that discussion so much smarter. But I just want to give back, Troy. Football, without football, I don't know what I would have been. I was hanging out with the wrong crowd, and my high school coach came up to me in 10th grade and said, Wachenheim, what hangs around horse manure? And I said, I don't know, Coach. What hangs around horse manure? He said, flies, and there aren't any flies on my football team. So I got the message real quick to stop doing that. And I ended up working really, really hard and got a chance to go to the Air Force Academy. It was my only Division I offer, FBS offer. So I went, didn't want to serve in the Air Force, but I wanted to play college football. And so I went there and met some unbelievable teammates. Ken Hatfield, my coach, unbelievable man. And, came to Christ there got a chance to go serve in the Air Force and then get into coaching. Coach Hatfield hired me at Arkansas as a GA and, work around Bill McCartney at Colorado, and then, Charlie Weatherby at Utah State, and then got hired back by Coach Hatfield at Rice. And then, Danny Rocco at Liberty, and then Jim Zorn with the Washington Redskins, and Mike London at UVA, and, just some great men of God and, great coaches. And they gave me so much. I just want to give back. And, all the assistant coaches, like Ron Vanderlinden, you probably don't know him, but he was at Penn State Air Force, Colorado when I was there.
He was at DC.
Yeah. And, Roger Henshaw, there's just so many coaches that impacted my life to such a high level, especially when I was young. I wanted a chance to do that. And, also any first-time head coach, there's so many lessons I learned as a first-time head coach at VMI. So many mistakes I made. And, I just want to be able to, if a coach wants advice, opinion, a suggestion, a mentor, I'm there for them. And it's free of charge, man.
That's awesome.
And so, I just want to be there to help guys and serve. And, I've tried to get involved with a few coaches and do that. And, most people have, not been interested. So I said, how can I do it for free? Easy. I said, I'll just put this advice out on Twitter. And again, most of the responses have been positive, but I'm sure there's, one or two guys that say, what is this guy doing? What's he thinking? But that's okay.
Yes. So Coach, you used to recruit some really good players at VMI, and then some of them would go into the portal, and now everybody's having to deal with the portal. And Deion Sanders, I've never been to the University of Colorado. You coached there, but to have a sold out spring game, and it was snowing. Like, how amazing is that? And then I think he had 15 kids go in the portal today. And I think some people were upset because some of those kids used that platform and that ESPN spring game to, get their name out there. So, it's a different game now, Coach, than when you got into it. So what's your experience with the portal? And, how did Deion do this? And then about the 15 kids that went in the portal today.
Okay, there's a lot there that you got to really take your time.
Let's just start with your experience with the portal at VMI.
Yeah, well, first off, I do want to start with Deion Sanders. I am extremely appreciative that Deion is a man of God and makes that known publicly. And he shares some unbelievable tweets on Twitter. And again, my 33 years of coaching, I haven't seen anybody do what he has done in such a short period of time. The level of excitement that he has created is just amazing. And the atmosphere that he puts out there. And, not what I would say to other coaches is, especially me, like, I'm not Deion Sanders. I can't do it that way, but there's other ways to do it. There's other ways to win. There's other ways to create excitement. There's other way to do things. But, Deion is, he's a once in a lifetime guy, a once in a lifetime talent. He's a once in a lifetime personality. And, I think it's just awesome, what he's done. Okay, the portal. So like in Colorado, here's what I'll say. At VMI, when you have a spring game, you can have a player go off in the spring game. And then all of a sudden now he wants to go in the transfer portal. But what people don't realize is he went off against the twos. He went off against the second team defense. Let's say he's an offensive player, and in spring, due to injuries and certain things, you may have a guy playing against a much lesser player, and he has a great game, but he's not going to play for you in the fall. And I'm not sure, I can't say what's going on with Deion, but he may have better players coming in, and you don't know if that kid's leaving because Deion told him, hey, man, you can come back to school here, but I don't see you playing for us next year, or if he's truly leaving. So there's some of that going on. Now, at VMI, I never wanted anybody to leave. It was really hard to get them there. I wanted to keep them all there. I felt like once you recruit them to the school, you had to recruit them to stay. So, we fed the transfer portal, and we certainly weren't going to get anybody out of the transfer portal. Now, Coach Rocco might be able to, but I sure couldn't. I couldn't talk him into coming and playing and going through the rat line as an upperclassman. So, maybe Coach Rocco will be able to figure out a way to do that. But I couldn't do that. I wasn't that gifted in recruiting, I guess. But I think in today's day and age, everybody knows the rules, and complaining about them does no good. And you know what? Young men can now, and women can go to college, and they can transfer, and that's just the way it is. And what I would only say to the young men or women that are getting ready to transfer is the grass isn't always greener. And to make sure you graduate, because sooner or later your playing career is over, and that college degree does mean a lot when you go interview, and where you graduate from does mean a lot. When people see my resume and they see Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from the Air Force Academy, it means something, and I think wherever you graduate from and the degree you get and where it's from, it means something. So I just hope they all, wherever they go, that they find a way to graduate. And hey, if you can go in the NFL and make big time money, or if you can get an NIL that pays you $1 million, I'd do it. College coaches do it all the time. I mean, we leave for $20,000 more a year, college coaches do. So I have no issue with that. I have no issue with a young man using the platform of a spring game to help him get video to transfer and go somewhere else. That's the nature of college athletics nowadays. If we didn't want to do that, if we felt that that isn't the best way to prepare young men to go into the world, then the NCAA is the agency that was formed that should have never allowed it in the first place. Once they said that was the best way to perform our jobs, I think every young man should take advantage of it. And I think if any young man, if he can make money performing athletically at a college, he should be entitled, or women should be entitled to earn that money and hopefully invest it wisely. I do think that they were always getting paid, because I do think a college scholarship is a form of payment. But if you can get money on top of it, awesome, man. That's what it's all about. That's what the United States was formed on. That's what democracy is all about. That's what capitalism's all about. Taking the abilities that God gave you and marketing them and using them to earn a living. And so what's wrong with earning a living by being able to make more money, whether it's NIL or a better scholarship, somewhere else? And so again, you don't know truly if the young man's leaving on his own accord. So fans, if you're getting upset, you think the young man's being selfish, I disagree with you. This is the way college football is. Doesn't mean you don't have to like it, but it's not changing. It's never going back. The genie's out of the bottle. It's not going back. This is the way it is. There might be some restrictions of when and when you cannot do it, but I don't think you're going to ever see the transfer portal go away. So I'm in favor of it now. I didn't like it before it came on. Didn't want it to happen, but now that it's here, I think it's everybody knows what we're doing, and I do think in some ways you can build a better culture by only recruiting high school students and keeping them there all 4 years. But here's a sad thing, Troy, is that some college coaches are recruiting kids at other schools before they're in the portal, talking them into going in the portal. That's going on. And it's just so easy to do it with social media and, different ways to communicate, Snapchat, GroupMe, whatever, WhatsApp, that there's so many ways to get in contact. Sometimes you may be included, Troy. Like, there might be a big time coach call you and say, you got a player at a school. And he says, hey, I hear Johnny's not happy playing for Coach Walk over there. Do you think he'd transfer to our school? And then you call and ask him. I mean, I had that happen to me. I had that happen to me at VMI with a young man. A college coach from another school called the high school coach, and the high school coach called the kid, and the kid ended up leaving VMI and transferring. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that happen that aren't for the best. But hey, all I want to do is help coaches be the best men they can be, give recruits as much information as they can. I'm in favor of recruits and players getting whatever they can, if their talents that their talents will allow them to get, so that they can have successful futures.
Yeah, this is my friend Jim Tim, Coach, from Rochester, New York, and I'm so blessed to have gotten to know him. He says anything is possible with God. He's shared his testimony with me, Coach, and he's really been through a lot, and I've been so blessed to get to know him. Who will teach them?
So Jim, first of all, anything is possible with God. I 100% agree with that. You can part the Red Sea, you can move mountains. Who will teach them how to use the NIL properly? Well, hopefully their mom and dad. I mean, Jim, I would hope their mom and dad would teach them how to do that. If if their mom and dad aren't going to help them, hopefully, the coaches, the schools that have the ability to fund NILs have administrators that work with the young men on how to best, invest that money. I'm sure they do. Just, at our place at VMI, we did not have NIL, and NIL didn't become something out there until I was a head coach at VMI. So I didn't deal with that much. So you'd be better off asking somebody else, those things. But, again, I would hope their mom and dad teach them. Here's the other thing. Why don't high schools teach as a mandatory class, counted as a core course, financial planning and investing? Of all the things I learned in high school, I would have loved to have learned, how do you balance a checkbook? How do you make a deposit at a bank? If my parents taught me. So how do you invest in stock? What's the best way to invest in stock? What's the best way to invest in stock? What about 401ks? What about retirement plans, IRAs, Roth IRAs? Just simple things like that. How much money should you pay in rent a year? How much money is gas going to cost you? Why don't we teach insurance? Is it term life insurance better or whole life insurance? Things that they're going to use every day. Why don't we teach them that in high school instead of some of the stuff we teach? I think that should be mandatorily. Jim, I know Marshall Roberts. He coached for me at VMI. We coached together at Liberty. A+ man, A+ human. Love Marshall Roberts. Great family. 4 unbelievable kids. He's A+. There's no better than Marshall Roberts.
And Jim Tim has been applying at some different schools. He's had some interviews, and he said he would work for free. What is your advice to him about that, Coach?
As a college coach?
Getting his foot in the door for a college job. Should he work for free? How should he get his name out there? He's networking and everything through the podcast. And
So what I would tell Jim to do is every Division I FCS school is allowed to have 2 graduate assistants now, and some FCS schools don't have a master's program. Like VMI, we did not have a master's program. So we could not have graduate assistants. So we relied on volunteer coaches. So, go get a hold of Coach Rocco now that he's there and try and get on there as a volunteer coach. And then, Shane, as you know, ended up leaving us after 1 year of volunteering and going to being a high school coach. Now he's a head high school coach. My son did it for 2 years before he got a GA job at Georgia Tech. He volunteered for us for 2 years. Everybody that volunteered for us as a coach, either went to high school or college and got a full-time coach. Volunteer to work at their camps. Let them see you coach. We've had guys do that, volunteer to work at your camps. But again, those volunteer jobs are extremely competitive. But there's a lot of people that want to do it, but when push comes to shove, when the rubber meets the road, they can't, find a way to get it done financially. So if you can truly afford to be a volunteer coach, there's a school somewhere that's going to love to have you. You just need to get a contact to them. So the more coaches the more that you can get a hold of them. Reach out and tell them that you're willing to work at camp and do a live interview there, and you're willing to volunteer and get on the field and coach. And eventually, if you're good enough, you'll find a way. Even if the first year all you're doing is being a quality control guy and breaking down opponents' film, good coaches shine in whatever they do, and you'll have an opportunity.
Yeah. Can he get up with you on Twitter, Coach? Can he send you a message? Coach
tell him to DM me on Twitter with the phone number. I'll give him a call.
That's awesome.
And we'll talk.
Tim, that is awesome. Send Coach a message with your phone number
on Twitter. I'll give him a call and we'll talk through everything and try and because every situation is unique, and I'll try and take care of them.
Man, Jim, I'm so glad you're watching this. I mean, and Coach McNally told me there's a brand new school in Buffalo. I mean, he's in Rochester. I don't know how far that is, but there's schools all the time that are starting football and looking for volunteer coaches or restricted earnings. So maybe you can even look at that, Jim.
The other thing is high school. My gosh, high school, there's no teaching jobs anymore, and it's harder and harder to find guys to coach. And, if you can volunteer at a high school and you do it for a stipend, again, it just takes – look, if you're a good coach, they're going to find you. So I'll tell you a story here real quick. I needed a receiver coach. And, I called my son, who's younger than me, because, I generally had to hire young coaches.
Yeah.
And, I called other guys. looking for recommendations. And my son recommended a guy by the name of Bilal Marshall. He says, Dad, I don't know this guy, but I went to a camp, and this guy worked camp the way you're supposed to work camp. And I said, okay. So I called references on Bilal, and they all, told me A+, A+, A+. And so I called Bilal on the phone, and we talked, and I liked him. And then we scheduled a Zoom interview. We Zoom interviewed, and then, we brought him down on campus, and I hired him. And he was there. He was again, A+. Well, after being with me one season, he got hired at West Virginia as the receivers coach at West Virginia. So,
man,
and the only reason I knew about him is my son saw him coaching at a camp and said, Dad, this guy does it the way it's supposed to be done. So,
man,
that's all I can say, man, is if you do a good job, eventually somebody's going to notice you. A lot of great high school coaches have gone on to college and won a lot of football games and done a great job. And, some of the best coaches I've ever seen are in high school. When I was at Rice University in Houston, Texas, I went and saw the Houston Oilers practice. I watched the O-line coach there, one day. The next day I went to Katy High School and watched the spring practice. And I walked out of high school and I said, man, the O-line coach at Katy High School is a better coach than the guy coaching the Houston Texans. No,
wow.
It's a true story. I said, it's just who you know and who noticed you at that point.
Man.
And, I would have hired the guy from Katy High School to be my O-line coach at VMI. I just couldn't outpay him. He made more money at Katy High School coaching O-line.
All I can say is I'm the very first in and the very last out.
Doesn't matter. How good a job do you do when you're there? I really don't care how long you're there. How efficient are you? Like to me, if a guy can get it done from 8 o'clock in the morning and go home at 4 o'clock, I'd rather hire him than the guy who has to get there at 6 a.m. and has to leave at 10 a.m. 10 p.m. Be efficient, get the job done. If it takes you all day to get it done, great. But if you can get it done efficiently and get out of there early, I'm good with that. Other people may want you there all day. I'm not like that.
Was it like that with the Redskins, coach? Did they want you to go all day?
I did because I needed to based on my job. So I would get there at 5 a.m. in the morning, and I would get my workout in from 5 to 5:30. I would then go to my office to get my pre-film ready. And then I would go to the meetings all day long and do things. But my responsibilities required me to, be there a little bit longer than some, because that was my first year there. So I had some of the duties that were more labor intensive, time intensive. But, when I was done, I went home. And so, nobody checked me when I got there. Nobody checked me when I left. And I didn't get any brownie points for, doing that. My first year in the NFL, I was a little bit behind the power curve and needed more time to get my work done than guys who have been in the league longer and longer. And plus I had more tasks than some of them had, some of the more experienced coaches had.
Wow, coach. That story about the Katy, Texas offensive line coach, that is something, coach.
That guy was awesome. One of the best coaches I've ever seen work.
Yeah, I agree, coach. So, Tim, you made a connection today. Coach said he will call you and just hit him up on Twitter. There's his Twitter down there at Coach S_WAC, right, Coach?
Yeah.
And his name is James Tim.
Awesome.
On Twitter. So, Coach, thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to leave the clinic with before we sign off?
No, man, I appreciate what you're doing with the clinic. I appreciate all the coaches out there. Again, man, you got a great job. I used to always tell my staff, coach your players like you want your own sons coached. And especially at camp, when you're coaching camp, if you paid $50, drove 2 hours for that kid to go get coached at camp, coach him up the way you would want to your kid coached. And hey, I'm here to help you. I hope what I said today helps some people out. Again, if you disagree with me, that's cool too. If you want to talk about it, awesome. But I'm not the shell answer man. I don't have all the answers. I just have some opinions that work for me throughout my career. So have a great day. Be safe on the road out there. Appreciate all you've done for me.
Yeah, thank you, Coach.
All right, Troy, man.
All right, we'll stay on here and talk a little bit, Coach. I'm going to end it.